What's going on, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of The Final Whistle. I shouldn't say this month's edition of the final episode. If you can't tell, summer school is making me drag and everything is mixing up, but that's fine. We'll power through it. Much like how the Richmond Kickers have powered through and got into their mid-season break. As always, joining us is my good friend, Mr. Matt Myers. How are you doing, sir? How are you doing with the Virginia humidity?
I mean, it's great when you're indoors.
Nah, that's true. That's true. I think because since I'm outside on campus most of the time, like I've sweated out multiple shirts. It's not fun. Like
Oh,
it's
I mean,
not.
that's where the pro move is. You have the shirt on the back of the door in your office, and swap it out, if / when needed.
Yeah. I got to get to that point very soon. But the main reason why we have this show and the main reason why you guys are listening to the show is because we get to talk to this glorious man here, Mr. Darren Sawatzky. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm all right, man. I don't know about glorious, but I appreciate you giving me some
Well,
props.
well, I mean, hey, look, the beer game is very strong at this point, and that's the most important thing.
Well, thanks for that. It's good to have good beer game, I suppose.
As always, listeners, just make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you haven't already, we're trying to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube, so make sure you do that. And if you want to donate to the podcast, you can go to rivercity93/support, and you can do so there at the website. So make sure you do that. Well, Coach, let's go ahead. Let's get started. Right now, the club is sitting eighth in USL League One, 4 wins, 4 draws, 6 losses, 24 goals scored, and 24 given up. On the on the negative side of that, unfortunately, no home wins since April 9th, where the team beat Union Omaha. Bright Point, you guys swept Union Omaha, officially collecting all 6 points there. Um, and the midseason break is assumingly an opportunity to kind of regroup, get everyone refreshed, ready to go for the tail end of the season. I want to start off with this. What's been your early thoughts or analysis on the first part of the season and how things are going?
I would say unfortunate would be the word I would use. I don't think that we've gotten, I'm not really an excuse maker, and I will give you reasons why as we progress tonight. But on the injury front, it's been a little bit more difficult of a run, I think, related to our preseason and how that's happened. We've missed a couple penalty kicks in games. That's not normal for us. That if you look back on it, those are huge pieces. We go to Knoxville and play a 20-minute game and spend 25 grand to have a game stop after 20 minutes and injure two starting players who are still out because of it. And, it's been really frustrating. So to have a midseason break right now, normally these breaks, I don't really love them. I believe 100% in the mental health of players. And if that's what they need, I'm all for it. But it's very difficult. But for us, it's actually pretty advantageous because it gave us an extra week for some guys to work towards health.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the topic of the break that just happened, I know, in I guess the non-sporting world, we're all given our certain vacation days, vacation weeks that we can mostly use as we want. Clearly, that's not necessarily something that happens in your world or your players' world. When they get you know an off week, or a week without a game is maybe the better way to put it. What kind of opportunity do they have to truly step away? What does that off week look like compared to I guess a regular Saturday to Saturday week for you all?
I'll address what just happened, and then I'll address that specifically. As a former player, I remember you do. Mental health is a very important thing, and we care a lot about it. There's a mandatory mental health break negotiated by the players in the CBA. Our players just came off of it. That's 4.5 days off. As a pro player, I never received 4.5 days away from the game. So hopefully the guys, they recharge. They seem to come back very energetic the last couple of days, but if we have a week where we have an off week or there's a 10-day period, we definitely like to try to give guys some time in succession, both for guys that need to get, treatment. They spend a couple of extra days at PT or whatever. But, I played for Clive Charles at the University of Portland, and he's a legend in coaching. And he used to always say, you got to work hard and you got to rest hard. And one of the things we try to do is let guys rest away from the cognitive pieces of the game, both from the stress you guys put on them to get wins and the hard stuff that we put on them to try to execute and get there. So, we try to give them as much breaks as we can. Unfortunately, a lot of times, if we get a 10-day breather, we give them enough time to recover, and then we got work to do because we're trying to get to the next game.
And you kind of alluded to it earlier, but injuries, and I know there's been a lot of talk in the fan base and online about that. Can we get an official injury update from you on where some player statuses are? I think obviously the big one is Darwin, and how is he doing?
I will just say this: both Darwin and Maxi took injuries in that game that kept them out of the last few weeks. I saw some people going after me about Maxi maybe not playing and stuff. He's been injured. I don't talk specifically about what their injuries are, but Maxi trained the last 2 days. Darwin was in parts of training. Darwin's injury is a soft tissue injury that's going to heal. The way that it sets up, we have 16 league games left of the season. We're going to work to have Darwin be a part of the majority of those. But we're doing it with kid gloves because obviously has been one of our biggest threats, and he's a great player. We got to get him back, and we don't want any more setbacks. So they're both in parts of training and making their way back. But I mean, the reality of it is Adrian Billhart. He's been on a roller coaster. He had a really great week. When he came back last week, he's a little dinged up again. Like he's fighting back and forth. So he's day to day. We've had things with Clyde and Guy, with Seufert. I think it all really goes back to not being able to do as well with the preseason that we had. And based on now anticipating that it could snow in Richmond 5 days during a preseason, we're going to plan differently. Part of that's on us, but we had no idea that would happen. But guys are on the mend. It's just having a lot of important players injured doesn't help.
Yeah. I kind of, you made the statement earlier in the year where you said like, we have a very, sustainable and successful roster, but we notice a drop off when we kind of have to go more into the bench, and injuries kind of hurt that and allude to that. So with those injuries and with the players that have been available to you, obviously this team has been able to score an abundance of goals. They lead the league in goals, 24 scored, but I was also giving up the most in 24. I'm not going to ask you, is that the balance you're expecting? But obviously you're proud of the attacking efforts and you're disappointed in the defensive efforts. Where do you, at this mid-season point, kind of find the middle ground of the overall performance of the team?
Well, 24 goals scored puts us, I think, second in the league in goals scored. Teams are starting to catch up to us with games in hand. Few teams have the same as us, so those statistics are getting more legitimate. 24 against, I think, makes us third worst in the league. We have to do better. There's no question. And I'm not going to get into too many specifics, but Darren Sawatzky did not take any moments off in a 4.5-day break. There are changes and things that we have done and are implementing to correct that side of it. We still, Josh Kirkland's only taken 16 shots this year, and he has 7 goals and is leading the league. Darwin Espinal, a couple more shots, but he's right there with 6 goals. Got to get him healthy. Chandler Dwyer's got a few goals on, say 20 shots, and Terzaghi still hasn't taken off. He's got a couple of goals. He's taken the most shots on our team. I think he's in the 20 range also. So we know that we can score goals. We're going to try to add to that and keep getting it from different places. But we were very, very we worked incredibly hard the last 2 weeks to work to correct the problem on the other side of the ball. That's all I'll tell you.
Yeah, awesome. Matt, you got anything you want to add, or next?
Yeah, I mean, kind of running off those attacking stats you're talking about. Kirkland, a good percentage. Is that the situation where you want him to be able to just take more shots even if he's converting at a lower rate? Kind of like you hear sometimes in basketball, if somebody's shooting really well, but now at that point they're not shooting enough. Even if it drops their conversion rate a little bit. Is that something that you all are looking for? Or is it a matter of he's just not getting enough chances and he's outperforming his chances right now?
I think it's a positional thing. I've played him a lot on the wing, and I've played him as the 9. I think that if he would have played as the 9 the majority of the time, I think he would have more looks at goal. But to have a conversion rate that's almost 1 to 2, for every time he's shooting, he's finding something every other shot. That's pretty good. I will tell you that we have been scoring goals, but the attack needs a tweak too. We've had games where we've been very anemic. Both of the Spokane games, we just never got out of second gear. We got to change that. So we've tweaked it a little bit. The idea, Matt, is to get Josh more looks in front of goal because obviously the guy scores goals, but at the same time open that up for other players. Chandler's capable of multiple goals. Soyford obviously can score special goals. Matty Bolduc really hasn't gotten going, and he's getting healthy now too. So we have different ways that we can do it, and we're going to tweak the attack a little bit. I think you're going to see more shots out of us per game.
Okay.
All right. I want to kind of go back to the Union Omaha game. We're not going to talk about the Lexington game because there's nothing to talk about there. The Union Omaha game, especially for Josh Kirkland, is that the ideal way to use a player like him, using his frame to win long balls and kind of more or less cheat to get the ball up the field and kind of beat Union Omaha at their own game in a sense?
Not an excuse in any way, but some of these fields are absolutely crap. Crap. And when teams come to play at Richmond, Drew and Jason do the best job in the league. We have the best pitch. When people play in Richmond, they get the best surface and the best atmosphere. There's zero question. I don't care what anybody says. It is. I travel. I go everywhere. So we get their best game because they love to play there. I don't love to play in Omaha. It absolutely sucks. Going to Knoxville sucks. I'll say it out loud. Going to Naples sucks. The fields are crap. You don't know if your feet are coming up or not. So when you make a decision, I don't know if you guys remember a year ago when we talked to the guys, do not play out of the infield. And a minute into the game, our goalkeeper decides to play it to our 6, who dribbles back in. They both fall down, and Matt taps a goal in to go up 1-0. They were absolutely told not to do that. So I was very, very poignant going into Omaha, how we were going to play the game. It was ugly. It was a mess. It's why Omaha's done so well there. It's very direct with both coaches that have been there and the teams. They're good teams. There's no question. I love Dom. I'm happy for him. I'm glad he's going to Tampa. He's a great coach. But the reality is when you go to Union Omaha, you have moments that you can play. The rest of it, roll your sleeves up, man, because the game's going to be a gritty game.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Oh, yeah, my fault, Matt.
I will just point out for not liking playing in Omaha, we've got a pretty good record there.
I think truthfully, guys, I think our guys have an understanding of how to play there. Union Omaha is not sitting in the table where they should be. I've watched their games. They've dominated a lot of games and lost them. They've been in every game they've played. It's been unfortunate for them. It's not my job. That's the job of their staff to correct that. But that's a good team. But playing there, preparing to play there, it's completely different than the way we prepare to play in Richmond. You have to train differently. We got to narrow the field. You got to go more direct. Maybe you do need to use a Kirkland, a Chandler, or somebody else, wink, wink, to help you get in behind and do things.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought that, looking back through USL history, like Rochester on that little tiny baseball field back in the day, Louisville when they first came in on Slugger Field, like I don't think it's a coincidence that some dominant teams in these leagues over the years have been playing on substandard baseball fields.
Yeah.
Listen, here's what I'm going to say to that. There's going to be a lot of new teams in our league next year. I think Portland's knocking it out of the park with attendance and stuff. We haven't played on that pitch, so I don't know. Naples had an amazing crowd. I know Alta's doing that. We haven't been on their field. So having new teams come in, and if it takes them a year or two to get it right and get on a pitch, then I can accept it. I just really wish that part was taken care of first, because it really is about football. Right? We want to sell tickets. We want to do these things, but it's the football first. And, Darwin Espinal is injured because he was forced to play on something that he should not have played on. Maxi Schenfeld, the same. And it's just unfortunate. People say, oh, it's the luck of the draw. Neither of those two would be injured if that game would have been played at Kickers City Stadium. No chance.
That's even a better transition, because even talking about City Stadium, like we kind of mentioned it earlier, some of the home struggles haven't been able to win since April 9th. What, in your opinion, what do you think has contributed to the home slump? The team has been able to do all right on the road, but what has contributed to the home slump where the team hasn't been able to get over across the line and win games? We've seen draws, we've seen high scoring games like Greenville, Westchester, but not be able to pull off wins yet.
So a couple of things. First one, on the Jägermeister Cup and that whole thing, I don't think that's set up for us at all. We have 3 teams in our division of the Jägermeister Cup that are the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference. And then we end up playing Lexington with teenagers on a team that's been on a 2-3 game winning streak in the championship. No excuses, but they should beat us, right? The measure really is against Charlotte. Could we have won the game at NCFC? Yeah, we didn't have a penalty kick called against us, which was an absolute tragedy, right? Again, like these things haven't happened. Louisville is the class of the USL across the board. Your question related to being at home, of course we want to win. Of course we hear what people say. Of course we want to do that. I said we have worked incredibly hard in the next 2 weeks through this stretch with it, two important games, an international game and then a Jägermeister Cup. They're really the games to launch us into the second half of the season. You're going to see something different. I guarantee that. I can't tell you exactly because the statistical data will tell you that we've created chances at home and we haven't necessarily finished. The game against Texoma, we were flying and in charge 30 minutes in. Kirkland had a goal, maybe could have had another one. And for whatever reason, we gave up goals and weren't able to find them. We have to improve there for sure.
Okay. And from not from a coach's standpoint, because I know you also are a teacher. You kind of mentor and teach a lot of these young players as well, or these guys that are learning how to be professionals. So how do you approach improving the home performance without letting the pressure get to the squad or to like certain players who might not be accustomed to like a dip in form and fans being upset about that? Like, how do you not let that pressure
How,
get to them?
Elliot, how lucky are these guys that you guys are who you are? I don't like some of the things you say because sometimes the things that come out of your mouth aren't accurate. But you know what? You're fans. You have the choice to say that. That's part of the business. We are one of the only venues in all of the USL where that pressure actually exists. We go places where there's no pressure on the players at all. There's no fans there. So our guys do feel that. Like there is that. And when you have 11 teenagers on your team and you have veteran guys that maybe aren't in form or coming back from injury, that is there. But that should sharpen guys, coaches alike. It should sharpen everybody down the road. That pressure is a good thing, and especially for the young guys, in the long run, if they want to play in MLS or they want to play overseas or they want to move on, they got to be able to deal with City Stadium, which is a hard place to play for both teams. So how do we deal with that? We do it. We work on it every single day. And the reality is, when guys do finally figure that out, they'll be able to handle any situation.
Yeah. And kind of focusing more so on the first half of the season. Um, I'm trying to figure out how to ask this, but because it's been talking negative, so let's bring some positivity to it. What do you feel like has been the biggest growth for this team this year, the first half of the season? That when you looked at preseason, you was like, if we can do this correct, then we can have success, and you've been proud of it so far.
We haven't been able to play the team that I wanted as the starting 11 yet. I haven't come close, right? So that's a bit of a misnomer. I will tell you that we kept going and going. We have changed some things, both in the attack and the way that we're going to defend things starting this weekend, that may be noticeable too, maybe not. The thing that I would tell you, the game in Omaha, I haven't said this outright to the guys, but I'm a big Roosevelt fan, and I talk about the man in the arena. I think guys are starting to really understand that. They're starting to understand what it means. It's not about right now, it's about the process of it and over time. It's about getting up every day and working towards it. And if you fail isn't necessarily the wrong thing. It might be the step along the way that gets you there.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say about our last league game that we won in Omaha is it was ugly, but the guys found a way, which means, and that was a group of guys, a different group of guys, some young guys, some older guys, and they found a way to get a result on the road in a very difficult place. That's the start. That's the foundation of the house. I know I've used that analogy before, but without that, all of the prettiness and the soccer and the attacking doesn't happen. And that's the starting point. So for me, it's the grit. And the beauty is where we're sitting in the table, one game left until we're halfway done with the season. We have a long ways to go. So I'd ask you to ask me that question again in 2 months, because I think we're going to be a much different version than we are right now.
Okay. Matt, you got anything you want to add?
Yeah, so it's been a little bit of roller coaster in terms of availability, in terms of player performance, and you've mentioned that and alluded to it. I think you have a good idea of what fans are saying, and not just us here, but fans at large. Who's one or two players that you think the fan base is misunderstanding so far of what they're bringing to the team?
Misunderstanding. That's an interesting question. I don't think people really understand how good Nils Seufert is. And he's been carrying a lot of injuries. He's played at 80%. The guy sees the game faster than most. He's capable of doing things where we start to get into a rhythm, and then Darwin Espinal goes down, or we start to get into a rhythm, and I have to change the 9 out. If I can get it set, and we can get it set where he has the ability to play 2 or 3 games with the same group of guys, I think you're going to see him shine more and more. Misunderstood. It's an interesting question. I'm not sure who else. Nils was the one that popped into my head, but I'm not sure that there's,
or maybe underappreciating.
Yeah.
We've underperformed on the defensive side of things, and for me, defending is the easiest thing. It's the gritty piece. It's rolling your sleeves up. It's doing the hard part, and the guys know that. They're working incredibly hard at that. So I'm not sure.
That's fine.
Yeah. I do kind of want to add on to this a little bit. So I'm gonna ask you this question: like, is there a guy who's been quote unquote like the glue guy for this team? Kind of like the first half of this season, a guy that's been not necessarily a goal scorer, but someone who's just been very reliable in that bridge between the coaching staff and the players to kind of make sure everyone is holding up to the standards of what you guys are trying to achieve and be at.
You guys will be surprised when I tell you who it is. Pablo Hara has had to eat crow and watch a 19-year-old play a lot of games. That guy shows up every single day with the same attitude and work rate. He helps James get ready if James is playing. He's played in a couple of games and made some saves and done well for us. We've tried to reward him with cup games and league games that matter. Every single day, his attitude never changes. He's positive and helpful, even when we lose games, or they all read your stuff. These guys are all over Instagram and all the stuff that everybody puts out. They read it. They know what people say and think. That never bugs him, man. He shows up every day. We could use some leadership at times, but there's another interesting piece with that. Darwin Espinal leads by example, but if Darwin Espinal is not in training, it makes it really difficult for guys to follow, right? Dakota Barnathan can be a little bit more vocal, but if Dakota's down or we're not playing as well, maybe the leadership isn't there as much as it needs to be just because of the situation that he's in. Or maybe Darren moved him to center back and he's got to concentrate on that. Because of the changes we've had to make, I think it's affected that a little bit. But again, I like where we're trending. The last 2 days have been really good. Coming out of Omaha and their break, I'm excited for where it's headed.
All right. Obviously, there's a lot of young players. The club has made their bones about paying homage to homegrowns and bringing in youth players like Jonathan Kaminga or a Gomez. Has any of those guys really caught your attention? Obviously, I know I'm gonna take away Richmond and Beckett Howe because I feel like those might be the obvious answers. But is there any young players that you look at and be like, okay, I can see him getting a couple of more minutes here and there throughout the second half of the season?
Well, you're taking guys away that are performing well right now, and they're homegrowns.
Well,
And
because I know that will be the obvious answer, so I'm trying to get you to get someone else in there.
well, here's the reality, guys. Nobody's doing what we're doing. I know the
Yeah,
fans are pissed off about it sometimes, but here's the reality. To be a sustainable lower league professional club around the world, you have to get into player sales. Every single team loses money. We are committed to it. We're bullish about it. We're working at it. Beckett Howell hasn't been playing because we're giving him token minutes. We've played Beckett Howell because he's been performing. Andrew Richmond performed his way through the U20s and in training, so he's gotten into games. Jonathan Gomez has had moments. He's another guy that when he starts to really make a stride, he takes an injury knock. There's a kid named Nick Sarantakos who he'll have a game for the U20s where he'll absolutely fly. We'll get him going in training and he'll take a knock. The timing hasn't worked out perfectly for him. We did sub a bunch of those guys into the game at Lexington because we knew we were going to need them to give them their opportunity. I think you'll see some of those guys get more of an opportunity. But you also have the thing where Brendan Dobziniak is going to leave for VCU at the end of the month. He's gonna go to college. We let Nicholas Simmons train. He's been training with us the last few weeks as he gets ready for Virginia. When he and his family aren't on vacation, he trains with us. So we're committed to these guys. And we want to win. Beckett Howell starts or Andrew Richmond starts. We're trying to win the game. We're not. It's not just to develop players. We're trying to do both. It just takes time.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, Darren, all we hear is patience." You're asking me to take a 16-year-old who comes through not a high-level youth system and plug him into an academy U20s, which is a little bit higher level, and then ask him to be a professional the next day to play against guys that played at Banfield or come from Major League Soccer. It's a huge jump. It takes time.
Yeah, so when it comes to the young guys, let's use Richmond as an example, just because he's been getting some minutes. I'm sure you and Mika, the rest of the staff, are always going through constant evaluation points. But at what point does the consideration of do we sign into a professional contract begin? When does that conversation start with him, his family, etc.? And you can use reference back like Griffin or Beckett, some of them for points too, if you don't want to reveal anything too much.
Well, I would tell you that one, we are committed to that project. So you're gonna see some stuff happening pretty soon. That's what I'll say to that. But as it relates to like Beckett and Griffin in the past, when if you're good enough, you're old enough. What we do is lay out to them, in Richmond's case, because you asked about him, he has an opportunity to go play at Georgetown. What we do is lay it out. If this is what you're getting from Georgetown and they're giving you $1 million and a Lamborghini like the VCU basketball players, then maybe that's the best situation for you. But we lay it out. Some of our guys are on a Bellevue scholarship, which is a full ride to college. We have 3 players that are signed to pro contracts as academy guys. They have a free education. I think I've told you guys about this before, and I'm happy to talk about it. But they get a free education and they get into a daily professional environment. So to answer your question specifically, those are ongoing. I have a lot of coffees with parents. I mean, I'm a youth counselor. I feel your angst and consideration and being tired, Elliot, because I'm doing things that aren't really in my job description because it's the right thing to do. And if you take Nicholas Simmons, we wanted to sign Nicholas to a pro contract. They decided that it was better for him to go to Virginia. We fully respect that. It's a great opportunity. We want him to go kill it. Doesn't mean that we're not happy. We'd love to have him with us. But that's the reality. This is where it goes. And that's true for every one of these guys. We sit down, we have a conversation. What is the best pathway? And if the pro pathway is there, then I have a discussion with Rob.
I want to ask you this question because you just kind of mentioned it. Like, what you're doing is unprecedented in lower league soccer, especially third division, where we see clubs coming here, spend a wad of cash, and stack their roster with mid-level players or whatever it may be, right? And what Richard is doing is the total opposite. And with that does come a lot of backlash, a lot of confusion, even when you guys have sat there in long lists and explained it and made PowerPoints and all this stuff, right? But and what I really want to pick out is the point you made about like kind of being like a youth counselor for these guys and helping them with that decision, doing this where there's no manual to it. How strenuous or how strenuous has that been for you? Because I'm pretty sure there's been mistakes along the way that you've made. Obviously, you're trying to do something that's not scripted. How strenuous has this role been for you trying to do that and help these young men achieve their dreams, whether it's with the Kickers or going to college or wherever it may be?
Okay, huge question. In order for lower league soccer to survive anywhere on the planet, you have to do what we're doing. Spokane can blow out the checkbook and do what they do, but eventually Ryan, the owner there, a guy I know, is going to look at this thing and go, I can't lose millions of dollars. We've been around for 32 years. The people here have lost plenty of money. They want to try to do it in a different way. They're committed to this, but we're not going to do what they do. As it relates to kids and working with kids, developing players is not what I do as a professional coach. The crazy and hard part that what we're doing here, Mika, myself, Connor, Evan, everybody here, what we're doing is putting that hybrid together. I know people don't understand. And you soccer coaches will say, yeah, we're going to win the tournament. That's not what you soccer's for. If you develop players correctly and educate them correctly, the winning takes care of itself. They run hand in hand. Development and winning are not two different things. They run hand in hand. But to answer your question more specifically, when we talked to Griffin Garnett, who had an opportunity to go to the University of Washington, we laid out everything. And I am close friends with Jamie Clark, the head coach at UW. I know we talked 15 times before Griffin decided to sign with us. He said, this is what we have to offer. We go, this is what we have to offer. What is the best? And the parents ultimately had to make a decision. But we were honest, we were transparent, and we make sure we do that with every single kid. Okay, Landon Johnson's a great example. He's had good moments and he's had moments where he's been out a bit. I talk to Landon every single day. People forget that Landon is still just 18 years old. He's been in our environment for 2 years. Development isn't linear. And Landon's had some moments in the last month that have been the best moments he's had. That might take a little more time. But we put Landon first and the soccer second. Well, if you have a team with not as many veterans as, say, Spokane, and you take on injuries, now we're asking people to have patience because we're demanding of Landon to do what a guy that's a pro that should just get paid to do it. We're asking him to both grow as a young man and as a player and also perform. It's a tricky piece. It's not that strenuous to me. It's trying to explain this to people where they don't understand. It's the part that kills me. It's like, what's really going to happen is when a couple of these guys really explode, people are going to be like, oh, yeah, that's neat. It doesn't happen overnight. These are long processes.
Yeah. And, trying to build that. Oh, my fault, man. You got something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. What I was just going to ask was trying to build that environment when it comes to youth players, and you're building this from the ground up.
Mhm.
Where have you seen your own your staff shortcomings at, and the lessons you guys have learned from that?
I will tell you right now, the community support to help the pro team in their initiative is zero. We partner with youth clubs. They let us train on their fields when it's available. Like, there are times we have to change training because there's a U12 girls team that needs to train there because we're borrowing that. We really respect them and we totally appreciate the opportunity. But we, as a professional team, we need a training ground. In order to truly develop players, we need something that we control. I can't train on 5 different surfaces in 4 different locations in order to develop players correctly. I also need a clubhouse. I need a place where we have them in an environment where they're completely safe. Currently, the only place we can do that is at City Stadium with a really cool locker room, but we don't always have access to that. We run other teams. They need that opportunity too. So in order for the Richmond Kickers to make that next step, we need a training ground. It's very, very difficult. We need proper preseasons. We need to make sure that all of these things are in place. The best academies and player development programs have residencies, in-school programming. They have all of this stuff. We're doing it with the grit and fight of myself, Mika, Connor, Evan. I mean, the amount of work that we do outside of the soccer part, you guys would be amazed in order for these kids to have an opportunity. Elliot, if you knew how many administrations at high schools I have talked to doctor this and doctor that at private schools or superintendent this to try to explain to them what we're trying to do. And in time, we'll get there. But man, it's a ton of work.
Oh, I can believe it, especially here in Virginia high school sports. I can definitely believe it. My bad, man. I didn't mean to cut you off. You can go.
No, you're good. Your question seemed like more natural follow up. I was guessing. So you kind of going back a little bit. You're talking about. I think the theme of the conversation right now is having a little bit of patience, right? Big overall theme, I guess. So, kind of referencing back to one of the post game questions Elliot asked you. I can't remember exactly which game it was. You mentioned this is right now year 2 of about a 5-year plan. We know that in your first year you mentioned having a 3-year plan, in year 3 came together right there. But your answer there, you talked about in that 5-year plan, we're going to be seeing these guys coming through and having the experience by then. So is part of that 5-year plan to have these young guys sticking around for 5-6 years, or is it to be able to flip them? Because it seems mixed messaging a little bit to the fans.
Okay, so let's be specific. The first thing is yes. One, if Griffin Garnett can be sold to Germany tomorrow, we're doing it for him and his development. And at the same time, it brings revenue into the club, which allows me to buy veteran players. I've been incredibly clever in the last couple of weeks, at least clever in my own mind, in trying to work on something that helps us get across the line for the fans in the short term, because we want both. Okay. And it does take a long time to develop players. I can't ask Bayer Leverkusen to come buy James Snedden, Griffin Garnett, or Landon Johnson tomorrow, because it is a massive, massive thing to do. You're going to have a international player that is ahead of, or they deem going to be ahead of, a domestic player overseas, both as youth and professionals. So I'm telling you right now, there is interest. There are things happening, but it's difficult. And we're not quite there, but we could be. It could happen quicker. So we also understand that people are frustrated and want to win. If you guys think you're competitive and you think you want to win, I promise you, you're not more of a competitor than I am. But I have to be very clever in how I help my team do that while I'm also working to develop players. So I'm gonna take the patience word away from you. I hear that people's
Sure.
like, be you're Darren, you say be patient, be patient. Look, we've been in every game we've played this year. The Lexington game aside, I mean, that Jägermeister game, that's one game, maybe not. But out of every other league game, we've been in these games. We've missed penalty kicks. We've outshot teams and not won games. So those things will turn. We've made a couple of things over the last couple of weeks that will help us with that. But you're also going to see these kids produce more. I mean, watching Andrew Richmond and Nick Sarantakos train, they're doing well. Beckett Howell is starting to round into the kid after missing all year last year with injury. He's starting to round into the kid that he can become. Griffin Garnett's had his ups and downs. That happens sometimes. But Griffin, when he's fully playing well, is a good player. James Sneddon's the same. In time, they're going to get there. Our job is to win enough games to make it so that you guys believe in it.
Yeah.
So just kind of follow up. So with that, 5-year plan, is it to be able to still have a core of Richmond-based players as part of the team and growing with the team alongside the sales? Is it just year 5 is when the winning is going to come?
So 100%. Apologies that I didn't say that.
No,
we know
it was
that
a long question, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, and I get long-winded too because I'm passionate, man. And you guys think you care, and I don't. We do. We do care. We do think we overthink more than you guys do, and we work incredibly hard at it. The idea is to put as many Richmond kids into this team that are ready and are going to be pros, so that it's this Richmond's team. We're from here, right? There are guys that won't make it to the next level. That's part of it. But if they're good at this level, what's wrong with that? We get 5,000-6,000 fans at City Stadium, and we're winning games with kids that grew up in Henrico or Mechanicsville or Chesterfield or wherever. That's an awesome story. And why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we want those kids? We also want them to chase their dreams. And this is something we do a little bit different. If there's an opportunity to sell a kid for probably less money than what we really want to make, we're likely to do it because we want them to have their best chance to go. And then maybe they come back. We're not going to do that over and over and over because it's just not going to happen. We're hoping for a big sale. We want to move guys on. But Matt, we want both.
Mm-hmm.
And we want this team to have we also want something else. And people, please hear me on this. This is very important. We also want the best veteran players that we can buy at the USL League One level. Nils Seufert was a great addition. Darwin Espinal is a great addition. There may or may not be some new ideas coming around soon. What I would say to you is we're attempting to do that. And if that means to try to win a championship, all veteran players play sometimes, that may be what happens. We're in a situation right now where we have to play kids. And the beauty is, for the most part, they're rewarding us. We just got to get a little bit further down the track.
I appreciate the answer.
Yeah.
I hope it answered
it. I think it did.
So Darren, as we turn around the corner, we look at the second half. The team is sitting just above the playoff line. Like we mentioned, teams that have played games, so the table's starting to level out a little bit. What in your mind needs to change in the upcoming months to make sure the Kickers get over that finish line and finish out strong in the 2025 season?
Look, to be above the playoff line right now at about the halfway point with the challenges we've had and how we've played at times, it's not a horrible thing. What we have to do in Richmond is stay in the fight. In 22, we rattled off and we got there, worked incredibly hard at that. But everything changed with the CBA and the initiatives in this league. Our job is to stay above that playoff line and reward you guys with entertaining soccer and win at home. We got to do better. So to answer your question specifically, we got to quit getting scored on as much as we do. We know that, both on set pieces, in the run of play. We got to quit making mistakes on the defensive side of the ball because we know we can score goals. So we're going to continue to attack teams. I think we're entertaining going forward. We got to get better at that and score goals. But to answer your question specifically, we got to quit giving up the goals we're giving up. because no team's going to win anything getting scored on as much as we are.
That's very fair. That's very fair. And I mean, to kind of put a nice bow on all of this, we've talked a lot, and you've been directing the message at fans. Going in the second half of the season, man, what for you will be the message, not only fans but also your team as well, to make sure that we're all heading in the right direction.
So one thing I would say is we all, and I'll answer for me because I'm not going to answer for some other people. We respect that people want to win, and we respect that stuff. I would do a deep dive into the situation. If you want to attack Darren's family, or you want to attack my commitment, or you don't think I'm a tactician and all of that, do your research. Look at what it is. I'm a humble guy. If you don't like the formation, if you don't like the way that we approach it, or what I have to say, no problem. I'm a grown man. I can handle that stuff. But the realities are, we've been in every single game. We're gonna be in the games coming up. If we're gonna work to do that, we are trying to win every game. We are making moves, and we are training to win on Saturday against Chattanooga. We are doing all of these things. No issue if people want to be upset if they didn't get what they want. But look, we understand the pressure of playing in Richmond. We think it's a great thing. The guys are ready for it, and we go forward with the glass half full. If people are worried about and all that, we're going to go forward and try to win games for you, regardless of what you say about us.
All right. Matt, anything else you want to add, my good man?
No, not that I can think of. Just look forward to getting to see y'all 3 times in 8 days after missing out for a week.
Yeah.
It's another interesting thing with injuries, you guys. That Loganese game is unbelievable. It's such an opportunity. We hope the stands are packed with people and it's entertaining. But it's really an interesting month for us. It's really an interesting month.
Before we wrap up, because I meant to ask you this, the Lexington result sucked. Whatever. It's not really about the result, but I think the most interesting thing that I was watching for that game is really like the young players that were playing in it. Obviously, you had Andrew Richmond, Landon Johnson, and others that were getting key minutes in those games. We also saw Jonathan Gomez. I think Kanagwa also got minutes in that game. But for those kids that haven't really gotten minutes or were looking to fill in spots for you to give players rest, what was kind of like the message to them? Was it kind of just like putting an arm around them and be like, hey, look, the result is what it is, but I'm proud of you because you did X, Y, and Z that we practice on all week to a
Look, I
certain
don't
point.
listen, man. In the first 20 minutes of that game, Addy had a look, and I think Josh had. If we score those goals, the game's a different game. We went into the game to win the game. We played over the course of that night. We played 7 teenagers. Did we lose? Yeah, we lost, and we didn't score early enough to change the game. So listen, we're not happy about that. But I'm never putting my arm around anybody in Richmond as long as I'm the pro coach. Going, hey, we're just going to get through this game. We tried to win it. If people are pissed off that we lost that game the way we did and they're mad at me, so be it. All that's going to do is sharpen us as we go into to play against Chattanooga. So absolutely not. I didn't, the young guys, a bunch of guys made their debut. Sarantakos made his debut, Dobziniak, Gomez, they all got minutes. They didn't get those minutes because we wanted to just play the kids. That's who was available to us, guys. With
No, no, no.
the 2 games in that 7 days, there were a lot of guys. So I'm happy those guys got minutes, but we were trying to win that game.
No. I know that. Maybe I asked it the wrong way. Not saying like you're pacifying over the game or anything like that. I'm asking it in a term of like, how do you use a game like that as a building block for those young players?
Look, man, can you imagine being 16, 17, 18 years old and having all of you guys swearing at them and pissed off and chanting things and doing all these things? They're kids, right? And that's the environment. It's my job to trickle in that type of pressure and what you guys do and what they see and how they feel and how many minutes they play to try to help them develop. For every one of those kids, it's a positive opportunity. The only problem was we just didn't have one more sub. So when Andrew Richmond, cramped up in the last 10 minutes, that's on me. I needed to recognize it earlier, and he and I didn't communicate well enough, so that's my fault. But outside of that, I think all of those guys got valuable minutes that night.
Yeah. And last thing before we finally wrap up, and always I'm thankful to have your time on these shows because obviously you do not have to do this. I'm thankful to have you on here. But obviously Matt mentioned it: 3 games in 8 days. Obviously 2 key league games, but you have a preseason friendly with a Segunda Liga team in CD Leganes. Um, one, how do you manage a game like that against a team with that kind of opposition? But then also, um, how excited are you to kind of coach against a team of that level?
Look, what an opportunity for our guys. There's contractual obligations on who they bring and who they play and all that, and we're going to make sure that guys get a great opportunity. But we have a plan for that. We made the plan when the game came to us. Okay, what a wonderful opportunity for fans and for those kids. But I'm going to tell you right now, that plan was made a month and a half ago. Right now, we are laser focused on Chattanooga. I won't think about that team again outside of what we planned before until Sunday morning.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, Coach Sawatzky, man, we just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know this one was very passionate, but I think that's a good thing as you lead the troops into a very busy July schedule and everything like that, man. Always just listen. We just want to say thank you for taking time out of your day for listening to our show, because without you, we couldn't do this. If you want to support our show, you can do so at rivercity93.com/support. You can do so for as much as a coffee a day, as I hit my microphone by accident. And last but not least, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. With that being said, Coach Sawatzky, once again, we can't wait to cheer you guys on Saturday when you guys get the rifle win that you guys deserved against Chattanooga. It's played on a better field. Hopefully, there's no crazy rain either.
I mean, even if it rains, it has to be on a better field, right?
Right. With a proper drainage system.
How about that? Chattanooga's field's actually a nice field, but we end up there that week where we're in the swamp. I mean, it's been a pretty interesting year that way, but onward,
it's the whole state of Tennessee for y'all, man. I don't know what it is. It's the whole state of Tennessee.
Well, here's the deal.
One nonsense as well.
Listen, you take the games that have happened, the first half of the season goes like this. We're sitting in a position to control our own fate, so it's time to go start that on Saturday.
Right. Well, thanks again, Coach. We appreciate you so much, man. And with that being said, listen, we will holler at you guys next time. As always, be easy and be safe, and don't be afraid to be nice to someone. You don't know how it can change their life.